North Korea is an unimaginable country. North Koreans are being terrorized today.
Little is known about life in North Korea, a country shrouded in mystery and ruled by the relentless Kim dynasty since 1948. Under its strict regime, citizens must adhere to rigid rules to avoid severe or even fatal punishments. Shocking reports are revealed to the world thanks to the courage of journalists and infiltrated informants, bringing to light a glimpse of the bleak North Korean reality. From the recruitment of schoolgirls to serve as pleasure servants for the Kim dynasty, to the unthinkable crime of neglecting the cleanliness of the leaders' portraits, which can result in a fatal sentence. Brace yourself, as in today's video, you will learn about 10 bizarre and terrifying obligations under this regime where survival depends on blind obedience and the constant fear of its inhabitants. Let's dive into the first obligation: the Kipumjo group. Undoubtedly, one of the most shocking facts about North Korea is the so-called Kipumjo. It consists of a collection of groups composed of about 2,000 women and girls, supposedly kept by the leader of North Korea. The sole purpose of these women is to provide certain types of entertainment to high-ranking officials of the Workers' Party of Korea, their families, and some distinguished guests. Little is known about the enigmatic Kipumjo group. Most information comes from testimonies of people who managed to escape the country. According to some reports, this group is divided into 3 distinct teams. Some interviews with North Korean defectors show that girls from across the country are recruited for the Kipumjo based on strict criteria set by the government. According to information from American journalist Suki Kim, who lived undercover in North Korea, schools themselves recommended teenagers for the Kipumjo. In return, the families of these girls received money and elevated social status. These disturbing reports offer a rare and unsettling glimpse into how the North Korean regime controls even the most personal aspects of its citizens' lives. Now, focusing on the second bizarre obligation, we have the harsh reality of freedom of movement. Freedom of expression in North Korea is severely restricted by the government, which maintains strict control over all forms of communication and public expression. The North Korean regime, led by the Kim dynasty, exercises absolute control over the media, the internet, and education, using extensive propaganda to consolidate the cult of personality around the supreme leader. Any form of dissent or criticism of the government is met with extreme harshness, resulting in repression, imprisonment, and even fatal punishments. For foreigners traveling to North Korea, the experience is equally restrictive. Visitors can only access locations specifically selected by the government, such as monuments, museums, and tourist areas that have been carefully prepared to display a positive image of the country. All tourists are constantly accompanied by government guides who monitor their movements and interactions. Any attempt to deviate from the authorized itinerary, speak to local citizens without permission, or photograph unapproved areas can result in serious consequences, including detention. Ordinary North Koreans live under constant surveillance, with their movements and communications monitored by the government. Informing on others is encouraged, creating an atmosphere of mutual distrust among citizens. Public gatherings and any forms of organization not sanctioned by the state are strictly prohibited. The internet is available only to the government elite, and even then, it is highly censored and monitored. According to North Korean law, leaving the country without permission is an act of treason punishable by death. Borders are heavily guarded, and those who attempt to escape face enormous risks, including capture and repatriation, where they are often subjected to torture and long prison sentences in forced labor camps. I'm sure the third obligation will shock you: the sad condition of single mothers. In North Korea, the situation of single mothers is extremely precarious and marked by strong stigma and social exclusion. North Korean society, deeply influenced by traditional values and the regime's strict hierarchy, does not provide adequate support to women raising children outside of marriage. These mothers, along with their children, are often marginalized and deprived of access to basic services, including education, healthcare, and social assistance. Single mothers and their children face a life of discrimination and economic hardships. But it's not just single mothers who suffer. All pregnant women in North Korea face extremely difficult conditions during childbirth and in the weeks following. Hospitals, especially in rural areas, lack essential resources, including medications, medical equipment, and qualified healthcare professionals. Often, hygiene conditions are inadequate, increasing the risk of complications during childbirth. After birth, mothers are left virtually unsupported, having to care for their newborns under adverse circumstances, and without the necessary assistance. Due to these adverse conditions, the birth rate in North Korea has been consistently low. Economic difficulties, lack of social support, and poor health conditions discourage the formation of new families and the birth of children. The low birth rate, in turn, exacerbates the demographic challenges that the country faces, with a rapidly aging population and a declining workforce. Get ready to learn about one of the most shocking and unjust aspects of life in this isolated country: the Songbun caste system. Songbun is a social classification system that divides the North Korean population into various castes, determining where you can live, what kind of work you can get, what goods and services you'll have access to, and even whom you can marry. Your access to basic needs and life opportunities is entirely dictated by your Songbun. The Songbun system is divided into three main categories: the loyal caste, the base caste, and the hostile caste. The loyal caste consists of elite citizens considered the most loyal to the regime, who enjoy the best jobs, housing, and benefits. Their children attend the best schools and have opportunities to study abroad. The base caste includes the majority of the population, with limited access to services and goods, living in average conditions and facing restrictions in many areas of life, with minimal opportunities for social mobility. The hostile caste comprises those deemed disloyal or with suspicious family backgrounds. They face extreme discrimination, have the worst jobs and housing, live under constant surveillance, and virtually have no chance of improving their living conditions. Imagine not being able to choose where to live, what job to take, or where to study simply because of the class you were born into. This is what North Koreans face every day. During the Great Famine of the 1990s, food distribution was often based on songbun, meaning many people in the hostile caste simply didn't receive enough to survive. Stories from North Korean defectors often reveal the devastating impact of songbun. Entire families living in extreme poverty, children with no access to proper education, and adults forced into heavy labor with little or no pay, all because of their social classification. For the fifth obligation, we have something very disgusting: the use of human feces as fertilizer. In North Korea, agriculture faces significant challenges due to a range of factors, including economic isolation, resource scarcity, and adverse weather conditions. In an attempt to boost agricultural production, the North Korean government introduced an unusual and controversial measure: the mandatory use of human feces as fertilizer. This bizarre policy was implemented under the leadership of Kim Jong-un when the shortage of chemical fertilizers and the need to improve soil fertility became critical. The practice of using human waste as fertilizer, known as night soil, is not new and has been employed in various cultures throughout history. However, the mandatory imposition of this practice on a large scale is a distinctive feature of the North Korean regime. In 2014, Kim Jong-un issued a decree requiring every citizen to deliver a certain amount of human feces to the state as part of their civic duties. This measure was seen as a direct response to the shortage of chemical fertilizers, exacerbated by international sanctions and the lack of access to modern agricultural resources. The sixth bizarre obligation in North Korea is haircuts regulation. Imagine living in a place where even your hairstyle is controlled by the government. In North Korea, this is a reality. There are only 28 government-approved hairstyles, with 18 for women and 10 for men. And any deviation from this list can lead to serious consequences. For men, the haircuts are simple and short, reflecting the regime's ideology of maintaining a modest and disciplined appearance. Styles range from classic cuts, such as short sides and slightly longer tops, to completely short and shaved. The variation is minimal, and frequent maintenance is mandatory to ensure that the standards are strictly followed. For women, the list of approved haircuts is slightly more diverse, but still limited. Allowed styles include medium to short-length cuts, with subtle variations in layers and bangs. Long hair is discouraged, and extravagant coloring or the use of unauthorized styling products is strictly prohibited. The intention behind these rules is to promote uniformity and to avoid external influences that may be seen as subversive or Western. I'm sure the seventh fact will leave you completely intrigued. Kijongdong, the Ghost Village. Also known as the Village of Peace, this place is a settlement located in the Korean Demilitarized Zone, on the border between North and South Korea. At first glance, Kijongdong appears to be a thriving agricultural village, with modern buildings, well-paved streets, and carefully planned infrastructure. However, the reality behind this village is quite different. Kijongdong is actually a ghost town, built for explicit propaganda purposes. The village was erected in the 1950s during the Korean War, and has since served as a tool of North Korean government propaganda. The intention behind the construction of Kijongdong was twofold. First, the village was designed to show the outside world, especially South Korea and its allies, an image of prosperity and modernity, suggesting that life under the North Korean regime was highly developed and desirable. Second, Kijongdong was built with the aim of attracting defectors from South Korea, convincing them that life in North Korea would be better than in the South. Despite its carefully constructed appearance, Kijongdong is essentially a facade. Tall, colorful buildings were erected but are completely empty inside, with no interior partitions or finishes. The windows of the buildings have no glass, and the lighting seen at night is the result of automatic timers, creating the illusion of human activity. Kijongdong is just one of many examples of the lies and propaganda that characterize the North Korean regime. Moving straight to the eighth bizarre obligation, we have punishments for disloyalty. In North Korea, it is mandatory to respect and obey leader Kim Jong-un, his family, and the state. Any offense against the Kim dynasty is considered blasphemy and can result in imprisonment or death, applying to citizens, immigrants, and tourists alike. One of the most well-known examples occurred in 2015 when Defense Minister Haeon Yong-chol was executed with an anti-aircraft gun for allegedly disobeying orders and falling asleep during an event with Kim Jong-un. In 2016, Kim Jong-un banned sarcastic jokes about his regime, holding mass meetings to warn citizens about the illegality of such criticisms. All those who dare to challenge these rules are severely punished. Many are cast out of society, and several are sent to political prisoner camps, where conditions are inhumane. It is currently estimated that around 90,000 people are imprisoned in these camps. The ninth North Korean obligation would be comical if it weren't so sad: crying at public events. Among the numerous peculiarities and impositions of the North Korean regime, one of the most surprising and bizarre is the obligation to cry at certain public events. This practice, which may seem strange to the outside world, is yet another form of social control that Kim Jong-un's government uses to keep its population in a constant state of obedience and reverence. In North Korea, public demonstrations of emotion are meticulously choreographed by the state. One of the most notorious occasions where this obligation manifests is during the funerals of the supreme leaders. When Kim Il-sung, the nation's founder, died in 1994, and again when his son, Kim Jong-il, passed away in 2011, scenes of collective mourning were broadcasted worldwide. Thousands of citizens were seen weeping, beating their chests, and expressing an apparently unbearable pain for the loss of their dear leaders. However, these displays of grief are not spontaneous. North Korean authorities closely monitor their citizens' behaviors during these events. The expression of sadness is not just expected, but mandatory. Anyone who does not participate adequately or does not show enough emotion can be accused of disloyalty or lack of patriotism, leading to severe punishments. Now, you're about to be shocked to learn about the life of political prisoners in North Korea. North Korea is known for its severe human rights violations, and one of the darkest aspects of Kim Jong-un's regime is the treatment of political prisoners. Thousands of North Koreans are held in internment camps where they face inhuman conditions and brutal punishments. Among these camps, the dreaded Kaechon internment camp stands out as a symbol of repression and cruelty. The conditions in Kaechon and the forced labor that prisoners are compelled to perform. One of the cruelest and most inhumane practices of the North Korean regime is the policy of 3 generations of punishment. According to this policy, not only the individual accused of a political crime is punished, but also their future generations. This means that children, grandchildren, and sometimes even great-grandchildren can be sent to internment camps simply for being relatives of someone deemed an enemy of the state. The Kaechon internment camp, also known as Camp 14, is one of the most notorious political camps in North Korea. Located in South Pyongan province, Kaechon is a vast complex where political prisoners and their families are held in terrible conditions. It is estimated that tens of thousands of people are confined in Kaechon, living under a regime of brutality and constant surveillance. Prisoners in Kaechon are subjected to a daily routine of grueling forced labor, often in mines, plantations, or factories. Working conditions are extremely hazardous, and malnutrition and physical exhaustion are common. Food is scarce and of poor quality, consisting mainly of corn and salt, leading to a high mortality rate due to hunger and disease. Political prisoners in North Korea are forced to perform hard and inhumane labor without rest. These jobs include mining, agriculture, construction, and manufacturing. Working conditions are extremely dangerous, with little or no regard for worker safety. The workday can last up to 16 hours per day, without adequate breaks or medical care, resulting in frequent accidents and deaths. I want to know what you think about North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. If you're interested in more content like this, check out our video on the shocking situation Vietnam is currently facing. Just click on the video appearing on your screen now. See you there.